we feel inadequate. The second thing I would like to lift up from the story of the feeding of the 5,000 is that Jesus involved the disciples. Jesus employed the services of the disciples. Jesus used the disciples. And it's not that Jesus cannot do it by himself, but Jesus wanted the disciples to do it. And I kept reflecting upon that. Why is it that Jesus wanted the disciples to do it? Jesus wanted the disciples to do it because Jesus wanted to teach them how to rely on God and the great provider. The Bible says that when Jesus looked up and saw the great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" And John goes on to say that he asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. God could just go ahead and command bread and fish to come down to feed the people. Jesus could have sent them away even earlier so that they could go and refresh themselves. But Jesus did not do that. Jesus waited and got to the point where the crowd was still with him, and then he approached Philip. And then he said to Philip, "Where are we going to get something for these people to eat?" And Philip's response is very interesting. Philip's response sounds like the Majoin Church Council meeting response. Philip's response is that Jesus' question was, where are we going to get something for them to eat? And Philip's response is not about the location where they can find something for the people to eat. Rather, he explains to Jesus how expensive it will be to buy bread for all. And he goes on to give the costs of that endeavor. He says, it will cost us 8 months' wages, an approximate equivalent of 200 denarii. In Ghana, we will say that it will take thousands of cedis to feed people. Jesus, what are you thinking? You think we can feed these people? All the Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, tell us that the disciples rejected Jesus' proposition that they should feed the people. They all said that Jesus sent them away. Jesus sent them away. But Jesus insisted that they should feed them. Why does God use human agency in his mission to serve society? Is a key question here. God uses us to teach us that we need to depend on him. He is the provider and not us. That's the whole lesson he wanted to teach Philip and the disciples. So when Philip said that, Jesus went ahead and said, "No, you go ahead and find something for them to eat." The third thing that I like to lift up is sometimes how tiny and inadequate our resources are. And that came from the response of Andrew, Peter's brother, Simon Peter's brother, who, after Jesus insisted that they must look for food for the people to eat, he came up and said, after going through their inventory, checking their resources, he said, "Jesus, here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish." And then he went on to say, "But how far would they go among so many people?" So when Jesus insisted that they should find something for the people to eat, Andrew's response is that this is all that we have, and added that it will not reach anywhere. So Jesus, it is still a futile exercise. Usually the poor are the ones who eat barley loaves, while the rich will take the wheat loaves. So this is a poor person's meal that was presented to Jesus. Many times we feel very inadequate. We feel that our resources cannot provide for the needs of society. The lesson that Jesus is about to teach the disciples and believers is that lesson of Gideon's army in Judges. When your resources are tiny compared to the needs, you know the victory is God's, not man's. The provision is God's, not man's. Only now are the disciples prepared to see what God can accomplish with what they do have. So here's a sequence of things that happened. They have examined the problem and seen no solution except to send the people away to feed themselves. Jesus doesn't let them. Jesus insists that they should feed them. We can't, they protested. 5 loaves and 2 fish is all that we have. And then Jesus says, give it to them. Until the disciples are willing to commit what they do have to the enterprise, nothing happens. And Jesus waits. Their contribution and commitment must be part of the solution, however tiny and inadequate it is. So first, there is such a hunger for spiritual nourishment. Second is that Jesus wants us to be the ones who should provide the nourishment for the people. And third is that in spite of our inadequacies, in spite of our tiny resources, and in spite of the enormity of the task, Jesus still believes that we can perform. This story lifts up a number of lessons for me that I would like to end with. And the first one is that I realize, and we all realize, that our resources are woefully inadequate. The Christian Council of Ghana will be the first institution to let you know that our resources are woefully inadequate. But what this parable or text story is telling us is that if we take inventory of the little that we have, and we bring those resources to the great provider, the great provider can turn it around to achieve provider. He has taught them the lesson of Abraham and Isaac. Abraham was said to be the father of all nations.